I mean, that's really, I think you're reaching to the core of, what commitment manager is all about,
Hey, I
really.
got it.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to the Cloud Therapist channel. I'm Richard Simon. This is the start of a two-part series with Zesty. We are going to focus in this part on the Zesty solutions. And then the next part, hopefully, will be a demo of the Zesty platform. Now, let me say hello to Adina and welcome her to the channel. And then we'll kick off on the discussion about the Zesty solution. Adina, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you. Yeah, well, thanks.
Excellent, thank you. Adina, just kind of let's start with a quick intro to yourself, your role, maybe your location, whereabouts you are in the world. That's always interesting to everybody to learn about. Yeah, let's kind of go with that, and then maybe a quick intro to Zesty, please.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Adina Brown. I'm the head of product marketing here at Zesty. Zesty is a tech startup running out of Israel with offices in San Mateo as well, and in the Ukraine, in Kiev.
Fantastic. Okay. Where did kind of Zesty start? What was kind of the starting sort of? Give us a little bit about the history of the company.
Yeah, sure. So Zesty was founded in 2019 with the vision of really making cloud infrastructure more affordable and accessible to more organizations. So Zesty helps organizations to make their cloud infrastructure more dynamic by adapting compute and storage to application demand. So in effect, this significantly slash cloud costs. It also helps to maintain app performance. It reduces the manual effort required by engineers in maintaining their cloud infrastructure. And it just really works to reduce and minimize the hassle of managing cloud resources. So currently, Zesty is supporting thousands of ops and cloud teams around the world get maximum value out of their cloud infrastructure.
Fantastic. Okay, so before we kind of get to the Zesty solutions to talk about those, let's kind of just talk generally a little bit about sort of dynamic versus static sort of cloud infrastructure. So Zesty's focus seems to be kind of around AWS, particularly sort of reserved instances market and so on. So first of all, what's the reserved instance?
Mm-hmm. So, so a reserved instance is basically a discount token that works to bring down the cost of running EC2 instances on demand. So I like to think about it this way. You've got tokens, discount tokens to your local supermarket,
Right.
but the tokens are specifically for pickles, let's say. And you know that you like pickles, but you don't love pickles all that much. So you've got hundreds of dollars worth of tokens for pickles, but you know that you're also going to you're going to need to buy crackers to eat them with, but you
Right.
can't change the tokens for pickles to use them towards crackers.
Right.
So so in the same way, these reserved instances give a great discount in the cost of using EC2, but they haven't got much flexibility associated with it. Now you're really stuck to the instance type, the size, the region, and the OS layer that you're using the discount on. So
Okay.
if you change your instance type, if you change any one of those factors, then you can no longer use that reserved instance. So what we help you to do is sell off those extra pickle tokens that you don't really need, and allowing you to go ahead and buy tokens for crackers, basically.
Right. Fantastic. Okay, that's a great analogy. I think that's a good
Yeah,
way
you are.
to definitely to describe that. Excellent.
Yeah.
So when kind of Zest, and I've kind of looked at your sort of website, and obviously we talked about some of the sort of in terms of the planning for this talk. You talk a lot about sort of dynamic cloud infrastructure. What do you guys kind of mean by that specifically?
Yeah, so we help basically what we mean with that is that people have their cloud infrastructure, and the cloud is generally notionally known as being relatively flexible,
Mm,
but really the truth is that when they're procuring resources for their cloud, there is limitation associated with it. So
right.
in the example I just gave before, with reserved instances, you have to commit to a specific type of instance for at least 3 years or at most, sorry, at least 1 year or at most 3 years.
Right.
So that there is actually inbuilt rigidity in the cloud. And what we do is we help to make it more dynamic and be able to adjust those resources more freely so that your cloud can keep up with changing business needs and changing application usage as well.
Right. Okay. So so if that's kind of the dynamic side, what's wrong with being static?
Sorry, say that again.
If that's kind of the dynamic side, what's wrong with being static? Why can I not just continue as I am? What's the kind of the difference there? What benefits are you bringing?
Yeah. So like I said before, the cloud is notionally seen as being flexible, but
Mm,
the problem with this, static elements of the cloud is that it makes it difficult to purchase resources. You have to know make a guesstimate of like how much usage of result, whether that's, discount programs or storage
mm,
or CPU or RAM. You have to kind of estimate somehow. Perhaps you'll look at previous, usage histories of how much your
yeah.
applications have consumed in the past and make a guess of how much, they'll continue to require in the future. And when you're launching new services and new features or launching in new regions to a different target audience, then it just becomes, harder to anticipate what that usage is going to be. So and oftentimes because of that, people will find that they've in excess over provisioned more often than not because
Mm,
they don't want to risk application performance, and they'd rather spend the money to ensure that they're well endowed with resources and not jeopardize application performance at all. But then there's a lot of money that's going towards resources that are purchased and never get used and basically represents money down the drain.
right.
So we ensure that, whether your application, is going through a usage peak or, you're changing some, fundamental elements of your infrastructure, whether that be instance types or the type of storage for your application, that the application won't suffer
Hmm.
from data loss. There won't be any lag time associated with it, and the user experience will be maintained.
Right. Okay. So kind of to a degree, you're kind of removing some of the guesswork that customers
Yeah, definitely removing the guesswork
right.
and ensuring, and really importantly, is ensuring application availability and performance,
Okay.
and
Excellent.
doing it, efficiently.
Right. So cloud cost management, of course, has become a big deal recently. So clearly, Zesty solutions are sort of helping in that direction, that you're offering sort of solutions that will help customers to save costs and um, be more dynamic in terms of their sort of approach to cloud resources, and also some of the maybe future anticipation of what their resource needs and capacity needs might be as well.
Mm.
Also, would you say those are kind of the main benefits for enterprises if they use the Zesty solutions, or is there any other ones that you guys have seen as well?
Yeah, so I would say basically it's the cost element that we,
Mm,
work to reduce cost. It's the, maintaining application availability and performance and
mm,
helping organizations to meet their SLAs. It's also about removing the manual effort of having to
mm,
do all that planning and monitoring and, future forecasting. And it's just automatically adjusting resources for you using an advanced machine learning algorithm that is doing it more consistently than what a team of human beings could, and just doing it quietly in the background without any risk of interrupting, the application.
Right.
And then also it's just good for the environment, like the more compute that's being generated and, the more energy consumption that goes into that, that's a waste of unnecessary, energy resources that might be better spent somewhere else. So it's just also about being more energy efficient.
Excellent. So yeah, so cost savings for the enterprise, but also kind of towards their sustainability goals as well.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay,
yeah.
So let's move on to the Zesty solutions now. Commitment Manager is your kind of the main offering that you guys have as a product platform. So yeah, can you give us a kind of a quick outline of Commitment Manager?
Yeah, sure. So Commitment Manager is all about helping organizations adapt their AWS discount commitments to their real-time application needs, to the extent that it can reduce the cost of running on demand by up to 60% of their EC2, which is quite a chunk.
Yeah.
But it does this by automatically increasing and decreasing the amount of reserved instances that you're using to cover your EC2 workloads. So as your workload usage goes up, we'll place more reserved instances over them. And as your workload usage goes down, we can basically remove them off and diffuse them at the same time. So you're using less when you need less. And so basically what it does is that it offers the flexibility of running on the premium price bracket of on demand, just using it when you need to, but doing it at the price point of, a 3-year reserved instance some of the time, or, a 3-year convertible reserved instance, depending on how you've structured it. So it really makes it possible to realize maximum savings with minimum risk, which is, in some cases, it makes it a no-brainer.
Right. Excellent. Okay. So how does it kind of fit into an environment? Does it need like an agent, or can it work in a sort of a normal instances as well as a containerized environment?
Yeah, it can. So it doesn't require an agent at all. There is a collector
I
that
always
is
like that.
yeah. It's really a very nice, slim solution, which is not invasive at all. So it just requires a collector that sits on the user's AWS Cost Explorer account.
Okay.
And it in terms of security, it's using an IAM role with limited permissions to make any changes on the account. You can use it on containers, really anything that on EC2 Linux-based services.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So can you kind of just drill into that a little bit more in terms of how Commitment Manager is actually doing its job? Maybe a little bit detail about the kind of what function it's doing and which areas. You kind of said it kind of maybe sits at the account level, but is it is it also affecting my VPC environment, my instances, as you said as well, and how does it kind of deal with those?
So it really doesn't affect the VPC environment at all. Yeah. So it really it's just it's when I think there's general confusion that like the whole name reserved instances makes it sound like we're actually purchasing the instances for you and running them up for you. So no, that's not the case at all. A reserved instance is a term that AWS uses to refer to this discount program. Basically, as far as AWS is concerned, this is like when users purchase this discount, they're purchasing making a reservation of instances. We're just helping. This is just like a financial layer
Mm.
above that just helps to manage the cost of those instances that you're purchasing.
Right.
We don't touch the instance at all. There's no collector on the instance or agent on, there's no API integration with the instance itself. It's just on the cost level.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that's a good distinction to make, because a lot of people maybe expect this to have like a physical, if you like, physical in single
Yeah.
quotes, influence over what you're actually running in your, cloud environment, versus actually looking more towards the, what do you have reserved, and is that optimized, and what's the most cost-effective way to actually run this particular environment that commitment manager is looking at for you, right? And I think,
Yeah.
yeah, that's a it's an important distinction to, I think, actually make, because it also, for me, I'm a visual person, so if you kind of describe
Yeah.
it like that, then I can, oh yeah, I get it. It's kind of at the the financial level, not necessarily at the the sort of the container level or whatever that we're
Yeah. It's
playing
not on
with.
the brass level or anything.
Right,
Yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
excellent. So okay, so how can it kind of, does commitment manager sort of integrate with observability platforms, maybe FinOps platforms?
Mm-hmm.
How would people who are kind of in SRE roles or CloudOps sort of roles, how would it fit in with with those types of tools?
Yeah, so in terms of SRE or cloud ops tools, that we're not currently populating metrics on, observability tools yet.
Right.
However, that capability is planned with the launch of a Kubernetes solution that's on the roadmap. But
Mm,
anyway, if you're using, let's say, FinOps solutions, visibility platforms, you should be reconciling the discounts that Zesty is providing for you, which is dropping the cost of your workloads, and that should be apparent on your, cost visibility solutions. So, you might want to, if you're only using native AWS solutions, you should be reconciling your Zesty bill with what you're seeing on Cost Explorer,
mm.
and likewise on other third-party visibility solutions.
Okay, so obviously one area is kind of might be a concern, is that with it kind of if you have sort of cloud engineers sort of designing sort of containers and Kubernetes, we're saying it's not going to affect how Kubernetes has been designed by those DevOps engineers in terms of its scaling, for example. It's not
Yeah,
going to necessarily influence that or touch that.
it won't influence it at all.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of, again, people want to kind of know how far it would reach into, sort of their environment, and as we said, which layer it will operate on.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. Yep.
So we said kind of it's looking at your sort of reserved instances. So does the cost of sitting on those reserved instances, you said you might have like a 3-year commitment or whatever, does that
Mm.
sort of outweigh the cost of licensing commitment manager? What's the kind of where does the
Yeah, so
cost
I
kind of compare?
wouldn't, yeah, so I wouldn't say there's any advantage really of, sitting on your own RIs over using a solution like Commitment Manager. I might be biased, obviously, but I think
Slightly.
that, yeah, slightly. But from what I see and from
Yeah.
listening to people who actually use the product,
Mm,
and what they have to say, there are really multiple benefits of having, a solution. It doesn't have to be Zesty, a solution like Zesty
mm,
managing it for you. And that is that with the way we do it, we
mm,
work very hard to make sure that we're only using discounts, that the commitments that
mm,
provide a deeper discount. So, for example, we use 3-year standard RIs, and we also try to use 3-year standard convertibles, because they provide the deeper level of discount, which most other people don't want to touch, because they also impose greater rigidity in,
mm.
that you can't do as much with them for a longer period of time.
Right.
So that's, and we assume that responsibility for managing them and so you don't have to. So secondly, we're better positioned to do that than any normal organization would be able to do it for itself, because we've developed this, really sophisticated machine learning algorithm that is, just designed for that singular one purpose to consistently monitor the use of how that commitment's being used, and automate the conversion of that discount either to, another instance, or to, in the case of standard RIs, to sell it back onto the second-hand RI marketplace. So we have an algorithm that's consistently working on it 24/7. Plus we have you get your own dedicated customer success person who's also monitoring your account for you. So it just means that, there's more consistent attention being given to optimizing your usage of AWS discount programs. Right. It's not like you're just flicking a switch and, it's all set and done. So we're doing the legwork, so basically organizations don't have to worry about, monitoring and reallocating. Sure. We also really minimize the financial risk. When you take on these, even savings plans that offer the greatest flexibility in terms of how they're used, there's still an element of risk associated with that. And, whether you're purchasing it for a year or 3 years, you have to know that you're going to have the workloads to justify their continued use. Right. So, we really minimize that risk. Plus, with the standard RIs, we have a buyback guarantee where, let's say the user is over provisioned accidentally with using Zesty, we've bought more on your behalf than what you actually end up using. We'll buy it back from you. So it makes it a much less riskier proposition than there's no one buying it back from you when you're self-managing.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so then there's just the work of doing it yourself, which can be very time consuming and a nuisance when you'd rather just get on the business with, developing or, focusing on the ops. Yeah. And what we're finding is that more of our customers are putting more of their workloads on Zesty, on Commitment Manager, once their self-managed commitments have expired, they just let Zesty pick it up and automatically manage it for them. And I think that that's a pretty big testament to the choice to, to work with Zesty over self-managing.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So some great points I think there that you mentioned. So certainly the de-risk aspect of it I think is really important, especially right now when we're kind of going through sort of a global financial problems and so on, cost of energy and things like that all going up. The other aspect was I was going to kind of talk a little bit more about sort of Zesty's integration, but I think it's probably more accurate to say that around the sort of cloud cost management and FinOps sort of layer versus actually the infrastructure layer of what you're kind of necessarily doing in the cloud. Right. And then the third one is the AI I picked up on because, as you mentioned, because what I noticed recently, and this kind of started happening from probably the fourth quarter of last year, 2022. So AWS at reInvent kind of came out all guns blazing in terms of cloud cost management. So there was tools everywhere on your disk, on your instances, on your Kubernetes, on whatever you were running. But they were all kind of very much, here's a tool, Mr. Customer, now go and use it. Right. And that's not very helpful because or at least not as helpful as a tool that might say, okay, I'll kind of sniff out your environment. I'll figure everything out. I'll base it on what other users other customers are doing. I'll use a sort of an AI ML, sort of learning algorithm to kind of figure everything out, figure out your sort of
unique needs of your environment.
Unique needs, and also kind of your MO. How do you operate? How do you work? Right. Your sort of modus operandi sort of thing. And then make some decisions or give you some decisions that you can make, basically. Right. And I think that's, there's not enough of those types of tools in that cloud cost management and FinOps space to do it for you or do it on your behalf. I think everybody's kind of, there's loads of tools like I said, AWS and others kind of thrown into the mix and gone, oh yeah, you can use our tool to do it, but I have to go and learn your tool. I have to go
Yeah,
and
right.
kind of, optimize it, make the best use of it, blah, blah, blah. And that's going to take me like, 18 months,
A
2 years
while.
to a while, yeah,
Yeah.
to learn that. Whereas kind of an AI platform might bring in some of that previous experience, apply it to you, figure out your MO, your kind of the way that you operate, and then start almost immediately or very quickly, giving you some, useful information back, and maybe even taking some decisions on a very minimal decisions on your behalf
On
as
your
well.
behalf. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really, I think you're reaching to the core of, what commitment manager is all about,
Hey, I
really.
got it.
Yeah. Exactly. Oh, yeah, in all seriousness,
Yeah.
it's like, like these FinOps and
Yeah.
engineers, they're inundated with data and
Yeah.
recommendations, and like, now they have to go and trawl through all those logs and usage histories to
Yeah.
see the recommendations of what they should change to. And most of the time, they're going to miss a lot of the recommendations
Sure.
because by the time they get to it, the situation has changed again.
Yeah.
So what Zesty is all about, just go straight, to actions, and you've got enough data coming in to focus
Definitely.
on other aspects of your cloud infrastructure. We're going to consistently optimize the cost of your resources in the background. You can validate that we're doing it well, by reconciling it on your Cost Explorer account to ensure, those checks and balances are being made. And we're going to do it safely in a way that, is not going to risk application performance at all. So, exactly. I think that's, we're trying to make DevOps and ops engineers and platform engineers' lives easier, reducing that mental load that they're going through every day, and let them focus on the aspects of their work that they enjoy.
Fantastic. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's move on to the other solution that you guys have, Zesty Disk. So can you give us kind of a quick brief outline of what Zesty Disk is?
Yeah, sure. So Zesty Disk optimizes the performance and ensures the stability, and also increases savings by up to 70% by by automatically shrinking and expanding elastic block storage volumes according to the application's needs and demands in real time. So as data ingestion goes up, Zesty Disk will expand the file system storage, and as application needs go down, Zesty will shrink the file system. And it does that basically by creating a virtual file system of the EBS volume that uses a unique file system that is able to, like an accordion, scale it down and up as needed. Yeah, so should your data ingestion go up, it adds volume and leaves a buffer. It always leaves a buffer to make sure that there's no risk of running into insufficient storage space.
Right. So, sounds like a mortgage tracker. So it kind of tracks the rate of the mortgage for you.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is similar. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
There's that parallel.
And I just came up with that analogy, by the way, as we were just talking.
I need to think of another supermarket analogy, obviously.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that might work as well. Yeah, definitely. But at the moment, my brain is not working that much, but I can get to like the mortgage tracker. It kind of tracks the
All
mortgage.
right. Yeah, because you're
Yeah.
working on your house. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I think all my viewers know that I'm working on my house. I mentioned it in so many talks now. Okay, so tell me kind of some of the benefits of Zesty Disk. I think you guys kind of talk about auto scaling and obviously reduce storage costs and so on, but just kind of give us an overview of some of those, please.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, it ensures and maintains application performance, at all times. So it ensures that there's no your disk doesn't run into insufficient space, which if it otherwise would. You'd have to deal with lag time and data loss and potentially throttling. Yeah, and it ensures that there's always sufficient storage space there. It reduces storage costs by up to 70%, like I mentioned earlier, and it does that by removing. Companies tend to over provision storage by 3 to 4
Tell me about it.
times. Yeah, right. And they do that for good reason,
Yeah.
you know, like that. There's a sound logic to that.
Yeah.
But you know, most of that time, that storage capacity is not doing anything for you. So by reducing that provisioned capacity to just a thin buffer over what you actually need, it can reduce the cost of storage by, you know, set 3 or 4 times, which is really significant.
Yeah, and that sort of, I think, dynamism in, you know, in the way that it's kind of working is because I think most companies, despite kind of all their best efforts, it's really hard to do capacity planning. So again, if we can apply something that's kind of helping in that area, and as you said, kind of, you know, we talked about sort of auto scaling and reducing obviously the storage costs, but you know, dealing with, I think your website also said about, you know, improved IOPS and you know,
Yeah.
and so on. That's all kind of part of that sort of mitigation. I think that's really needed. And before we ask you about sort of a use case, I actually had a use case, so that maybe Zesty this would have been really useful for us. A customer I was, you know, dealing with a while back, and they said, yeah, we've got all this storage everywhere, but I can't tell. We can't really easily tell whether it's production or dev kind of storage, just, you know, used by a developer somewhere just to kind of store some stuff in an S3 or EBS or whatever, and we don't know whether it's actually in use anymore. And hopefully, you know, something like Zesty this would be able to come and say, well, you haven't used that one for 6 months, so, you know, if you give me permission, I can kill that off. I can remove that for you, and that will cost you know, save the cost basically for, you know, that storage
Yeah.
just sitting there doing nothing for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. And only that, like, let's say, not only do you have that situation where you've, you know, just got that, I'd say, a terabyte of, you know, storage for one application that most of the time you're only using a fraction. But then there's also the situation where, let's say you're an e-commerce shop, you know, and it's, you know, Christmas season, and you know, you've got a lot more traffic on your website, and you know, it's creating a peak of, you know, ingested data. So what happens? So someone's gone in and, you know, used a Lambda function, let's say, to increase, you know, automatically increase the storage, and say you're good, you're covered, everything's okay. But then after that shopping season has finished and retail activity goes back to where it normally was, then you're still paying for that storage at the height of, you know, your purchase season. So, you know, and no one's going to think about going back in there to, you know, reissue a new instance to get a new storage. So it's not exactly on the forefront of anyone's mind. So it's that added value of also just being able to automatically shrink the volume again when it's no longer needed.
Sure. So how does Zesty this kind of get implemented? What's the kind of, is it on a kind of a UI? Is it API? What's kind of the deal with that?
Yeah, so it uses, like I said, a virtual disk is created. So we leverage all the native cloud providers, you know, SLAs and requirements, using all the native tools and procedures. Nothing really gets changed. And you know, the user is still the owner of all their data, and the only one that has access to it. We're not exposed to any data on the disk at all, nor do we want to be exposed to it for that matter. So we have a collector that is just tracking the usage metrics of the EBS storage. So that includes things like the capacity at any, you know, of what it currently is, the IOPS, and the read-write throughput. And then it's also collecting metadata about the disk, such as the instance type, what the disk
Right.
type is, and it's sending it to Zesty's backend, which has a machine learning algorithm, again, that's, analyzing all of this usage data and metadata. And it then creates a prediction model of how the disk is likely to be used in the future. And then any execution or changes to the disk is used via a highly limited IAM role.
Mm-hmm.
That has only the ability to scale up the disk and shrink it down again. So there's the solution has SOC 2 Type 2 certification, and it's GDPR compliant and CCPA compliant. So there's really, limited in terms of, expanding the port or the access to the instance.
Sure. And is that data sort of anonymized in any way? Is it kind of, are you guys kind of just collecting?
It's all anonymized. Yeah.
Okay.
There's
Excellent.
yeah.
Okay. And you kind of mentioned, is it actually just on the AWS platform, or does it work on other public clouds as well?
At the moment, it is just on AWS EBS, but it's definitely in the roadmap to scale it out to other cloud providers,
Okay,
which
cool.
hopefully will happen soon. Yep.
Right, excellent. Okay, so so in terms of kind of applying it in a sort of a customer's environment, is it kind of being used? Can it be used in things like in a Kubernetes cluster, where we're kind of exposing the cluster to to a particular type of storage, whether it's ephemeral or whatever it is that we're doing there?
Yeah.
And how would architecturally, how would that be? Would that be through the sort of the standard way, the CSI sort of way, the container storage kind of way of integrating into Kubernetes, or is it kind of, how does it work?
Yeah, sure. So it really sits as another layer between the PVC and Zesty.
Okay.
So we we currently do have a version of Zesty Disk for Kubernetes clusters that's currently in beta. So if anyone's curious about that, please reach out. And it consumes storage natively on the cluster through the CSI. And yeah, it's instead of having a full stack storage solution that you might otherwise to get the functionality that Zesty Disk provides, it really helps you just use the native AWS infrastructure and helps you to get more out of it. So it's supporting a simple tech stack rather than overcomplicating things.
Right, fantastic. And in terms of kind of integration again with sort of manageability tools and observability tools, what's kind of the focus there?
Yeah, so currently at the moment it's integrated with observability tools like Prometheus, which will be able to get you all the performance metrics and visibility into your management system. Yeah, and that's being built out all the time.
Fantastic. Okay, and you also sort of think that that Zesty Disk can actually utilize the same UI as Commitment Manager, although it's not the two aren't reliant on each other, but they can utilize the same UI. Is that correct?
Yeah, so if you want to see what Zesty's products are doing for you, they're both accessible on the same platform. So, if you want to get a view of how much your EBS volumes are being utilized and how much Zesty is saving you, whether for Commitment Manager or for Zesty Disk, they're both viewable from the one platform.
Right, fantastic. Okay, well, I mean, it's it sounds like Zesty's kind of really hit the nail on the head when it comes to the cost management aspect of it, and kind of focusing on that sort of financial and FinOps layer. And then also most likely one of the most sort of difficult areas of maintaining and managing in a cloud environment is kind of your storage and how you utilize your storage and how you optimize the storage. So I think both with the Commitment Manager and Zesty Disk, you guys have kind of really focused on two shall we say big pain points for customers. So
Yeah.
I think that's really is a good place to be able to help customers, with those challenges that they have when using public cloud.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's been our priority. I think that's been the driving vision to help, ops folks just take off the mental load of worrying about cost management. They've got a lot on their plate already, and we're really working for them to have to worry about less and let them do more of the stuff that they like doing and that they're good at.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Okay, well, Adina, thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I
Yeah, it
think
was a
the
pleasure to be
insights,
had.
yeah, and insights have been really useful. Some really good solutions, I think, from you guys. And yeah, I hope you keep coming up with more, because I think there's a lot more, I think, to be done in that space.
Yeah.
All the links for Zesty, the solutions that we've discussed, white paper, stuff like that, I'll try and make that available in the description of the video. Thank you guys for watching this episode. Look out for the demo episode as well, and we'll see you soon. Hey, thank you for checking out this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe to support my channel. And if you have some time, please check out some of the other videos on the channel as well. See you next time.